Hi there, everyone. I'm Melissa Wilson here from Fox 26 Morning News. Welcome to Lunch for the Soul. What a great time for us to gather and just have a positive talk about how faith can get us through the darkest times. My next guest has had quite a few medical scares in her life, but most of the time you'll find a smile on her face. And I truly believe that deep faith in her makes a really big difference in her life. And she's going to join us and tell us how she's able to pull that off. Please welcome Tiffeny Morrow. Hi, Tiffany. So
Hi,
good to
Melissa.
see you.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Well, you are a bright spot in this life, and I want to get quickly into that faith of how it helps you. But first of all, I want to make sure everybody knows where you've been during this medical journey, and then we'll get into how you've gotten through it. So let's first of all talk about what happened in 2008.
Okay, well, 2008, shortly after my 40th birthday, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It made the holidays very interesting.
Mhm.
I began treatment in January of 2009. I had surgery and began chemotherapy, 16 rounds of chemotherapy and 30 rounds of radiation. So I finished that treatment in August of 2009.
And right now, we're taking a look at a really tough time. I look at this look on your face. Everyone else is smiling and trying to get you through it, it looks like, but it's a tough time to lose your hair, isn't it? I don't think if anyone has ever been through it, or if they haven't experienced it through a loved one, they don't realize what that does to you. It's tough.
It is tough. And honestly, it really doesn't make any sense. You know that what the doctors have told you is going to require poison, basically being pumped through your veins. And for some reason, the first thing that goes through your mind is, I'm going to lose my hair. And so, definitely a mindset that you have to get over and push through.
And you push through it, but then something started happening. You get through your treatments and you thought you were having panic attacks. Why did you think that? What was happening in your body? What did that feel like?
I did. It was very strange feeling, almost like anxiety. There was a heat in my stomach, and I felt like I was shaking. My family saw it, my children saw it, and it was just something that was disturbing, but not necessarily anything that was overly concerning.
Mhm.
So that went on for quite a while. And then there was a day that I was with my daughter on her way to a field trip, on our way to a field trip, and I ran off the side of the road while I was having one. So obviously that was terrifying. And that's when I decided to pursue whatever it was that was going on.
And
So
that,
MD Anderson, yes, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead about MD Anderson.
MD Anderson actually sent me to a psychologist, and he did some evaluations and determined that I was likely having some PTSD and some anxiety as a result of it. And so I was satisfied with that diagnosis. And so he offered medication, and I wasn't interested in that. If all that was going on, I would get over it.
Mhm.
And so some time went on, and the episodes began to get closer and closer together. And so I knew that it was something that I needed to pursue further, that I couldn't just accept that it was PTSD.
Mhm.
So that's when I started seeing different neurologists.
And at that time, you found out it was a rare form of epilepsy. You were having seizures, not panic attacks, but the seizures didn't
Correct.
look like the typical ones, right? So there was no
Correct.
indicator of the typical. I think a lot of times people picture shaking or maybe biting your tongue, but that wasn't
Correct.
happening. It was different than that.
Right. It wasn't happening at all. My family described it looked like I was laughing or I was crying. There was just a sudden pause in what was going on in the situation. And it really came out of nowhere. And we never referred to them as seizures at this, yes, as seizures at this point. They were episodes.
Mhm.
And so, yes, ended up going to the several different neurologists after MD Anderson said they would no longer treat me because, thank God, I did not have a brain tumor. So they sent me to an outside neurologist that did um, I'm sorry, that
Oh,
did diagnose me with something called gray matter heterotopia.
and then that, I think it's interesting to see how you ended up finding a surgeon who could help you, because that's a big diagnosis. It's a rare diagnosis. And I love that social media has put you together with your surgeon. So you were just online one day, happened to see a post from an acquaintance, and voila, that ended up changing your life, right?
Correct. Very correct. I was just scrolling on social media one day and ran across a post from a friend who was just singing the praises of the industry that she was in and referred to a doctor that she had worked with that was doing some cutting edge things. And so that sparked my interest, and I sent her a message just saying I would like to hear more about that. And so she immediately called me and recommended Dr. Tandon, said he was a amazing man that I needed to meet.
And we're
And
talking
so,
about Dr. Nitin Tandon. He's with UTHealth Houston,
correct.
Memorial Hermann. And I loved getting to meet him and seeing you two together. I mean, you felt more like family than a patient and a doctor. Did you feel like that was a relationship you had with this surgeon?
Yes, very much so. From day one, I recognized that he was a very kind man and
Mhm,
made me feel extremely comfortable. However, what he was suggesting was terrifying.
mhm,
I'm not going to lie.
mhm.
And it was something that he threw out as an option, and I was not sure that that was something I wanted to pursue. It felt too invasive, and honestly, I was fine. I was fine in the situation that I was in, except my independence had been taken away from me.
Sure.
So about yes,
And what
I'm
would be
sorry.
so frustrating for you too is you think back to a decade before. At 40, you had lost your hair for chemotherapy, and your doctor,
Mhm.
Dr. Tanton, said you were concerned at 50 to lose it again, which he got. He was like, you've been there, done that. You don't want to go back again. But I'll give you a little sneak peek, everybody. Look at this sassy girl. She did, and looking just absolutely beautiful. So
Well,
you
thank
did
you.
decide to go through a surgery, and that was a big decision for you, wasn't it?
It was a huge decision, and it honestly took a long time for me to get to that point where I felt comfortable doing it.
Mhm.
I had many excuses from the time that I first met with Dr. Tandon through the time that I decided to go ahead and do it. For example, again, like you said, it was my 50th birthday. So I didn't want to be bald for my 50th birthday. I had already done bald at my 40th birthday. So that passed, and Christmas, the holidays came around. Well, who wants to be bald for the holidays? So
Mhm.
that was another excuse to put it off. So then my daughter got engaged at Christmas, and mother of the bride cannot be bald for her daughter's wedding. Another great excuse. And then guess what? COVID came along. So this was considered an elective surgery. So got to put it off for a little longer. I mean, we're talking over a year that I just kept putting it off, and I knew it was something that was on the back burner,
Mhm.
but as I said, my life was pretty good. There wasn't a whole lot that I had to complain about. So one day I was sitting on the back porch, and this was the game changer for me. One day I was sitting on the back porch, and I had no excuses left. And I was praying, and I said, God, I really need a sign. I need you to tell me an undeniable sign whether I should go through with the surgery, or I should be content in the situation that I'm in, because I truly believe that God does call us to be content sometimes. And so I was sitting there, and it was about 5 minutes later that the phone rang, and I picked it up, and she said, "Hi, Tiffany. This is Jessica with Dr. Tandon's office. Just calling to see how you're feeling about the surgery."
I have goosebumps.
I know, I know. It was the most amazing, life-changing moment, because God truly answered my prayer, and there was no doubt. And from that moment on, I was so at peace at what I was about to do that it was just so comforting that I had that. And so, yes, I told Jessica that day. I said, I really need to make an appointment with you now to start this ball rolling again. And see if I should continue to go through with it, if Dr. Tandon still thinks it's appropriate.
And
So it was that day that everything changed.
it had been a while since you had spoken to the office or anybody at that
Oh,
office.
yes. It had been months and months and months. There was no denying that it was a clear answered prayer. It wasn't a beautiful bird flying across my yard or something that I could construe
Yeah,
as a sign.
it was.
This one I felt was very obvious God speaking to me.
It's just incredible. And what's amazing too is that you're in the Houston area where they're able to pull off this procedure. I mean, this was state of the art using technology that was developed right here in Texas. But this doctor had only done about 40, but he still made you say and feel comfortable with what he had to do to stop this insanity of these awful things you were going through.
He did. He did. And again, I feel like it was because I was very comfortable with God
Mhm.
and his direction for what I was supposed to do, that he brought Dr. Tandon into my life. Therefore, he trusted Dr. Tandon. So why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So again, every decision I made, I felt that God was leading that decision.
You go from here, then you're here. And after this procedure, so you had to do it twice. So you had to go through one side of your brain and then the other. But after the second time, no more seizures since then. And it's been almost a year, right?
No more seizures since then. It's pretty amazing. I guess May 17th will be an exact year
And
from the last surgery.
guess what, everyone? She gets to drive again. So you had to take
I
quite a bit of
do.
time off from behind the wheel, as you mentioned.
I
You
do.
were getting help from anybody and everybody. But
It's true.
how empowering is that for you now to be able to just rely on yourself again and not have to rely on everybody else?
It's a very good feeling. It really is. My biggest blessings in life, obviously, are my family and friends and those who helped me get through this. But I honestly believe that what Dr. Tandon was capable of doing will go down as one of the biggest blessings in my life. And that
Wow.
beautiful sign from God that I will this was a bit became a very spiritual journey for me, and I'm very proud to share it with those who may need to hear it.
Yeah, and I love that you believe and feel that power of prayer. That's what rules my life and has during the really bad days and the really good days. It's so empowering to have that tool in your back
Right.
pocket, so to speak, to know that any day,
Very
no
true.
matter what time of day, the middle of the night, whatever, you can always seek that prayer. And most of the time, for me, a peace washes over me. How long have you been a faith-based person and believed in God? Is that something that started happening in your childhood? Is that something later in life?
Yes, no, I was blessed enough that it was something that I has been a part of my life since I was a child. So, yes.
I just think it's so empowering for you to be able to share that with people because, a lot of times people don't have that faith or they feel like, why me? How did you
Right.
keep out of that mentality? Because you're thinking, my goodness, I've already been through breast cancer. How could I possibly have a rare brain malformation that's causing me to have seizures?
Right.
And that's an easy way to say, why me? But it doesn't seem like you've ever
Right.
been in that why me mode.
Right. Well, I definitely tried not to be, but I just kept reminding myself that God doesn't promise perfect. And honestly, my life had been pretty perfect. I have an amazing family. I have two amazing brothers that I grew up with. I married my high school sweetheart. We have two wonderful children that have always made us proud. And my life had honestly been pretty perfect. And so one day, I was in a Bible study, and that was our topic of conversation. And they were asking what we were most scared of. And what I was most scared of is just that God doesn't promise perfect. So when breast cancer was diagnosed, it was just my reminder that life is not perfect. And I felt like God was saying, okay, how are you going to handle this? So it was a mindset that
Mhm.
that this was something that God wanted me to go through and that I would get through it and I would feel stronger after it was over. And so I told my children when I was first diagnosed that it was our time to walk the walk and not talk the talk. And so we took that phrase through the breast cancer, And as the seizures began coming about, Dr. Tandon's recommendation to do the surgery started coming about. Then it was a thought that was always out there, that God doesn't promise perfect, and whatever happened, I would be content with whatever happened. I would know that I had tried everything.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like if I didn't try this surgery, that there would be something out there that would have been a possibility to cure these seizures, and I would have been too afraid to try it.
Mm-hmm. But you went for it because you are a survivor. Look at you there.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
And you're a voice now for all that you've been through. You're a voice for people to see that you can be brave. And I love your message about perfection, because I feel like in our society today, there's a lot of pressure for us to appear and be as perfect as we can be. And it's not real. I mean, it's just not life.
No, it's not. It's not. And I am an example of that. There's so many people that are examples of that. So many people that have a beautiful faith, but do you believe that God doesn't promise perfect, and we have to rely on him to get through hard times? I really don't understand how people who don't have that hope get through crises in their life.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of doesn't make sense to me.
How important do you feel like it is that people feel incredibly comfortable with their medical team in a situation like this? I mean, you're going to have probes being inserted into your brain. And I know that
Correct.
feeling comfortable with your doctor, like you did at UTHealth and Memorial Hermann, made a big difference for you.
Yes, it did. I always say, I think through the whole situation, Dr. Tandon could have talked me into anything, because I did feel that comfortable with him. And as I said before, I really feel like it's because I had that sign from God. And if I was going to be comfortable with what God told me to do, then I needed to be comfortable with who he put in my life to do it. And he was the most kind man and the most gentle bedside manner. And one story with him was, each time I went in, he encouraged my husband and me to go home and to think about what he was offering, and to talk about it and just get back with him when we had time. And so we did that a couple of times, and it was the same recommendation. He was very patient with us. And finally, the last time that we went in there before the surgery, he looked straight at me and he said, "I can do this." And he hadn't said that before. And there was a peace in that when he assured me that he could do it. And again, I attributed that to God. God said, "I can do this," through Dr. Tandon.
It just gives me goosebumps. Again, you're doing a really good job of that today. And I just want to encourage people to make sure, if you're not feeling it, just try to go get a second opinion. Try to find that, because it can make a big difference in your care for sure. Tiffeny, you're such a blessing. Thank you for sharing your story. It's a very personal one. I know you hadn't looked at those pictures since ever, and did for this story. You've never seen those pictures of you back in 2008. And I know
very true.
Was hard emotionally for you to do, but you're really tough. And thank you for doing that.
Well,
for sharing that vulnerable side of you.
The only person that made me tough was God.
Yeah.
And I'm so appreciative to him that he gave me that sign, and it took me through the whole experience. And I feel like this is part of the experience. When I was asked to do this, I honestly wanted to say no. This is very much out of my comfort zone, but I told my husband that I'm not done yet. God is saying I'm not done yet. So if I can share my experience with anybody that it might help, then I will do it. I will be happy to do it. And it will continue to be part of my story.
And I love it that you want to make yourself available for somebody who might be on the brink, or they might have questions for you. They're on the brink of perhaps giving their life to Christ, whatever that is. And you want to be there for them. How can they reach you? Through social media? Could they direct message you perhaps?
Yes, I think that would be perfect. And I would be happy to hear their story. And I would be happy to share more of my story if that's what they wish.
Well, thank you for offering that. And how can they find you on social media?
Okay, well, my name on Facebook,
It
Tiffeny
is
Morrow.
with an E, right?
Tiffany with an E, that's true. That is probably the best way to direct message me through that. I'm not big on social media. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Twitter. So I would say just my name, unusual with the E, would be the best way to get to me. And
Well,
I will return your message.
all right, Tiffany, take care of you. Thank you for offering that.
Thank you, Melissa.
Great to talk
Have a
to you.
blessed day.
You do the same. And I hope you'll join me next week because I'm going to introduce you to a mom who is just so beside herself excited to actually get to experience Mother's Day this year because she had a life-shattering diagnosis during her pregnancy. She didn't know if she would make it. She certainly didn't know if her baby would make it, but I'll give you a little hint. Her baby did. He's doing great. I got to meet him. He's so absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to show you how doctors at Memorial Hermann came together with this massive team of specialists trying to figure out how to save her and the baby. It'll be a beautiful story right before Mother's Day. Bless you all for being here. Thanks for being on this Lunch for the Soul. I hope you all have a beautiful day. And I hope to see you back here next week. Take care.